Cincy's lost 14 straight roadies in primetime, regular season and post. That includes 4 games with Joe Burrow at quarterback. So let's bring in our 2-time Super Bowl champ, Bryant McFadden. B-Mac, I'll start with you here. So the Ravens are coming off a loss to the Browns, and they're really good when they're having a lead in the fourth quarter, except this season it hasn't always played out that way. Your Steeler game was a point of contention there for a Baltimore perspective. What do you think after their loss last week to the Browns?
Well, you talk about just letting one slip through their fingers. That's what the Baltimore Ravens did last week against the Cleveland Browns at home. Having a nice lead going into the fourth quarter. They pretty much dominated that ball game for 3.5 quarters until the fourth quarter, where the Cleveland Browns made some plays on both sides of football, and they found a way to win the ball game. That has been a reoccurring thing with the Baltimore Ravens in the 3 losses they have sustained so far this season. Having leads in the fourth quarter and not finding ways to win the ball games. Did so, as you mentioned, Tommy, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, against the Indianapolis Colts, and then a week ago against the Cleveland Browns. We believe the Ravens are one of the best teams in the AFC. But for them to get to that Super Bowl-like opportunity, they have to find a way to put teams away, especially when they have nice leads in the fourth quarter. And because they were not able to do that, that makes this ball game extremely important for both teams.
B-Mac, when you look at the Ravens, this is an alarming stat, right? Since 2021, in 34 games, they've had the lead with 2 minutes or less in the game left, right? They are 24-10. In that same scenario, the Philadelphia Eagles, right, they have had 32 games in that scenario where they had the lead with 2 minutes or less left. They are 31-1 in those scenarios. So you're talking about letting up at the end and letting teams come back. You talked about the certain games, right? The Colts game, right? Missed field goal in that game, turnover by Lamar Jackson. Same thing in the Pittsburgh game. Even when Pittsburgh took that lead, the Ravens still had a chance to win that game, but Lamar gets sacked, fumble, and they lose the ball, end up losing that game. The game last week, up 14 points in the fourth quarter. They allowed the Cleveland Browns to come back. You see right here. Now, that is an unopportunistic play, right? The ball goes off a helmet. Greg Newsome gets the interception. He gets a pick 6, and then the Browns go down and score at the end on the field goal. But, B-Mac, we know this, right? 4-minute offense. When you're up, you have to be able to run the football. When teams know you're going to run the football. We've always known this Ravens team to be a tough physical team, but when they've needed to get first downs running the football late in games, they have not been able to do this. Everybody expected when Todd Monken came over, they were going to throw the ball all around the yard, but when you look at him at Georgia, 2 tight end set. That's what they did, right? And they've done that this year with Mark Andrews and Pat Ricard. I wonder why they don't use Isaiah Likely a little bit more in that 2 tight end set. Kind of like they did with Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington, right? Use Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely in that same mode and attack the seams. Everybody just thought with Odell Beckham Jr. and Zay Flowers and Nelson Aguilar, they were going to throw the ball down the field. That's not who the Ravens have been. They got to get back to being that gritty football team that likes to run the football. They still run it well, over 150 yards a game. But B-Mac, when it's time to run the football and teams know you're going to run the football, you got to be able to do that.
And that's the most confusing thing, because we know how important the 4-minute offense is as a defender and as an offensive guy, because that's an opportunity for that said team offensively to seal the deal. And the confusing thing, as you mentioned, the Ravens, they have the best rushing attack in the National Football League. They can run the football against any defense. They've shown so based on the numbers, but in the most critical moments of a ball game in the fourth quarter, they take their foot off the gas. And what I would like to see them doing moving forward, implement Lamar Jackson in the running game. Utilize him as a +1. That's what makes the Philadelphia Eagles so deadly when they have a lead. As you mentioned to all of us, Leger, how they're able to finish the deal. Guess what they do? They run the football, but they incorporate Jalen Hurts. You know, as a former defender, when you have a +1 that you have to account for in the running game, it makes it super difficult to do so because he's a quarterback. But you have to account for him to be an extra runner as well. And those guys oftentimes have a lot of success because us as defenders, we can't account for them. They have taken their foot off the gas in regards to implementing Lamar Jackson in the running game. And that's why they have let up, having nice leads in the fourth quarter, because that 4-minute offense isn't clicking like it should be based on their rushing numbers so far throughout the year.
Might have a distinct advantage in that run game, though, if they keep going at it, because Cincinnati was terrible against the run last week. Devin Singletary was running on him like he was at FAU under Lane Kiffin, 150 yards for him on the ground. How does Cincinnati start plugging those holes, Leger?
Yeah, the thing is, with a Lou Anarumo defense, you normally don't see the pass. It's a bit concerning because when you look at the tape, right, there's certain things that they don't do fundamentally right. Like, guys aren't in their gaps. Guys are trying to play other possessions. And I know we have this tape we're about to run for you real quick, showing you some issues right here. This is last week versus Devin Motor Singletary. You see it right here. Trey Henderson makes the inside move. Jermaine Pratt, you have outside contain. Your leverage, you need to get to the outside. Devin Singletary is faster than you. He takes a bad angle right there, you get an explosive run. That's what the Bengals aren't doing properly, right? They're not doing what they're supposed to do as far as their run fits in this defense. So that's a little bit surprising if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. I know Lou Anarumo probably is going to talk about that. The thing that really hurts them, their best defensive end against the run, Sam Hubbard, will be out this game. So you talked about it. This, styles make fights, and the Ravens running the football, you're not having your best defensive edge guy against the run. Could be a long day for the Bengals run defense today.
Another issue that I'm seeing from Cincinnati with their issues in stopping the rushing attack from opposing offenses, you talked about the containment. We know how important that is, but just tackling. They missed so many tackles. If you go back to that game a week ago, right? Noah Brown, if you tackle the catch, you make it a more difficult field goal. But guess what happened, Leger? We saw a missed tackle. They have been missing so many tackles. When you talk about teams being real stout against rushing attacks, they utilize proper gap integrity. They utilize proper containment, but most importantly, they tackle the catch. They tackle the ball carrier. And that has been an Achilles heel for this defense as well in regards to not tackling the ball carrier, because Devin Singletary, up until last week's ball game against the Cincinnati Bengals, he hadn't done anything significant in the rushing attack. But when he saw the Cincinnati Bengals, voila, it was an opportunity to have a homecoming-like chance to really show out, and he showed out, and that has been the issue for the Cincinnati Bengals the entire year. So let's see, can they tackle better tonight? Let's see, can they utilize proper gap integrity? And most importantly, keep that outside shoulder free so you can keep containment.
B-Mac, we'll keep it with you, and we'll keep it with the Bengals here. Some are characterizing tonight's game for Cincy as must-win. B-Mac, what would you characterize it as?
Tommy, I'm right there with you, and for the other football fans that feel like this is a must-win, it is. Okay, you look at the total standings, the total record. Okay, they still have an above 500 record. That means something. Well, you talk about being in the best, most competitive division in the NFL, that record is not the most important thing. It's the division record. And right now, you look at Cincinnati, they're 0-2 in their division. And I do believe, you talk about what the analytics are telling us, we see at least 3 teams getting to the playoffs, potentially 4 with that 7% chance to get 4 teams getting to the playoffs. You can go ahead and cancel that if you're 0-3 in the division midway through the season. So they have to win this ball game by any means necessary, because in this division, if you're 0-3, with a few more games left to be played in your division, the likelihood of you making a postseason push is not likely. So they got to find a way to get into the winning column in their division, and it starts tonight.
I'm right there with you, B-Mac. I believe this is a playoff-like game for the Cincinnati Bengals, because if you look at their schedule, including tonight, they have the Ravens, right? They still have the Browns, who Joe Burrow notoriously struggles against, right? They have the Super Bowl champs and the Chiefs, and they have the Jacksonville Jaguars. So you talked about how they struggled in the division and winning games in the division. That's the easiest way to go to the playoffs, right? To win the division. But they have a gauntlet of a schedule coming up with games against the Steelers, who are in your division, Jacksonville, the Chiefs, the Steelers again, and the Browns, who the Bengals have ultimately struggled with each and every year. So this is a must-win to me for the Cincinnati Bengals, because if they lose this game, they find themselves 2 games back in the division lead, and it's going to be a hard mountain to climb up, especially because they're having some health issues. T. Higgins won't be playing in this game, and Sam Hubbard. So we don't know how long they could be out and how that will affect this team. So this is a must-win for the Bengals tonight.
Toughest remaining schedule in the NFL. None of those teams are below 500 the rest of the way. You mentioned T. Higgins, Leger. We talk X factors tonight, and each guy's going to choose at least one player. B-Mac is going with a guy who has to step up in place of T. Higgins. Who is that?
Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd has to step up. No T. Higgins, so the opportunities should be there for him. He missed an opportunity last week in dropping that touchdown pass reception from Joe Burrow. Clearly gave Houston life. in that situation, so the revenge opportunity should be there, but no T. Higgins. And the thing about Tyler Boyd, he's been a consistent contributor in their aerial attack. But through 15 career games against the Baltimore Ravens, he's only surpassed 90 yards twice. He's only had more than 6 receptions. He's never had more than 6 receptions in a ball game against Baltimore Ravens. I think he's faced off against the Ravens 15 times. So no T. Higgins. We need to see at least 6 receptions from Tyler Boyd. More would be icing on the cake, and at least 90 yards, because we know they're going to focus a lot of their attention on who? Jamar Chase, especially potentially not having Marlon Humphrey in the lineup. So Tyler Boyd, knowing that he's a slot guy, he has to be a big-time contributor for their offense, knowing that they will be without T. Higgins. And in transition to the defensive side, my other X factor is DJ Reader. DJ, you got to be the anchor. You got to be the anchor that solidifies the run defense at the point of attack. Your defense has been horrendous against the run the entire season. They ranked 30th in the National Football League in rushing yards allowed, 136. So it shouldn't be no surprise to see what the Houston Texans did against them last week. Where you're playing against the #1 rushing attack. Leger gave us the numbers. They're averaging 154 yards on the ground per ball game. If DJ Reader and the rest of the guys do not set the point of attack in the trenches, it's going to be a long day for them, similar to what we saw last week against the Houston Texans. And as you mentioned, no Sam Hubbard. You have to find a way to get production with him not being in the ball game. So DJ Reader got to be that anchor for that defense against the rushing attack from the Ravens.
Well, B-Mac, that's a perfect segue, because I'm going with a guy that's trying to run away from DJ Reader, Keaton Mitchell, who has really come on as late. He's been their real explosive back out of the backfield. Couple touchdown runs. You see it right here on a simple draw play. B-Mac, if you take a wrong angle like this, it's lights out. This guy is going to the house. You thought Devin Singletary was fast last week getting to the edge? If you take the wrong angle, Keaton Mitchell will make you play. You see it right there on that zone play. Right, a bad angle by Grant Delpit. Martin Everson, you take a bad angle? All right, I'm going to make you pay. This guy has track-like speed. He will get to the end zone. Then they like to get him the ball out in space right here on this screenplay. Look how explosive he is. Good job by the offensive line getting out in front. But if Keaton Mitchell just gets a sliver of a hole, he will take it the distance or take it for an explosive play. On this next play, it's a simple zone play that he's about to run versus the Seattle Seahawks. And Jamal Adams does a bad job. You see it right here. He does a really bad job taking a bad angle. He was slow. Look how he splits the defense. That's Tyreek Woolen, right? He ran a 4.3 at the combine. Keaton Mitchell took off on him. So we talked about this Cincinnati Bengals defense struggling against the run, giving up over 140 yards a game. If you thought Devin Motor Singletary was fast, if you take a bad angle, if you're not in your gap, Keaton Mitchell will make you pay. He's my X factor tonight.
He's that home run threat, guys, even though limited carries compared to the rest of the backfield with Edwards and Hill, but he has the yardage and the touchdown potential. So, guys, for the second straight week, we have a game that's 3.5, and thankfully it's going to be better than Panthers and Bears last week.
Hopefully.
Yeah, it should be on paper,
yeah,
but,
hopefully.
Right. But it is prime time, and we know totals can get tricky with 46, Leger. So do you think the trend continues maybe for an under in this game?
I think it continues for an under, and that was the thing that kind of had me worried when you looked at the number, right? It was 3, then it was 3.5, kind of go back and forth. B-Mac, you know this, Thursday night football, shorter game plan, right? Teams who can usually run the football win these type of games. If you look at the Bengals, since in the primetime games going back to 2021, 5-0-1. Ravens in their last 6 time games, the under is hit 5 of those games. I think this will be a drag-out, gritty game, divisional foes. Give me the under in this game.
Well, for me, knowing this division extremely well, AFC North matchups are usually tight ball games. You know what I mean? Tight ball games. So it's safe to say the team that's getting the points is in a good position to make you some money. So I'm taking the Cincinnati Bengals getting 3.5. If you're not comfortable with the 3.5, it's okay. Buy it up a half point. You know, you get 4 points. But I like Cincinnati. Here's why. Look at Joe Burrow. His past 10 games as an underdog. You see it right there. Numbers don't lie. Overall win-loss record, 7-3. ATS as an underdog, 9-1. Look at his completion percentage, touchdown to interception ratio, passer rated. He has really been playing his best football as an underdog. Then when you talk about being on the road, right? Since 2022, the Bengals, ATS, they're 9-4 on the road. That's big time money that they have won for a lot of bettors. And then when you factor in the Bengals in the last 6 games as an underdog, they're 6-0. They're 6-0. So I'm not necessarily saying put something on the Bengals money line, but if you feel comfortable in doing so, yeah, do it. But in regards to the Cincinnati Bengals getting points on the road, in regards to Joe Burrow being a underdog, big-time parlay guy and winning parlays for people, he's been at his best. So give me the Cincinnati Bengals getting 3.5. Like I said, don't be ashamed to buy it up a half point. That 4 point might make you feel extra comfortable. So give me Cincinnati getting points.
Maybe just in case you get a 27-23 type game there. Best of luck to your guys' bets. Our thanks to BMAC and Leger here getting us ready for Thursday Night Football. BMAC's got his podcast, of course, All Things Covered, with his cousin Patrick Peterson. They just had that win over Packers. They also talk about Week 11 Steelers and Browns, Cleveland without Deshaun Watson.